us debating with them than the Tea Party as libertarians. My frustration is you can look at people challenging your opinions as trolling or debating or harassing, or you can look at it as an honest exchange of ideas. It would appear to me that the current administration of the Tea Party, with the exception of John Nowicki, who strikes me as a pretty bright guy.
John's very smart.
But the current administration, if you will, seems more interested in arguing amongst themselves, what I typically call the Rhode Island Republican Self-Admiration Society. Because is it true you're overlooking all the varied activism that's going on in the state politically? It seems to me that a lot of folks exhaust themselves on social media to the detriment of any real legitimate activism.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it can be a cop-out as much as it can be a sounding board that we've never had before. So in a way, being a desktop soldier, and fighting the fight on social media is only so good because you can only get so much accomplished. I think that it's really relevant part of how we do things now and share information. But the reality is what's getting done. Sitting in a chair and fighting over a keyboard. So it's a blessing and a curse. But I think that grassroots activism that you see the progressives and even your traditional liberal Democrats do, they've got it down to a science.
Right.
Why we're not taking a page out of their book, or why we haven't, I should say, has surprised me, especially as I've been in my position now, going on about 10 months, and trying to learn what we've done wrong and what we can do right. And it's that local activism that was lacking. So with the pretty strong financial support of the RNC, we've got money for field staff this year. We've been hiring folks for the first time, paid staff members in the RIGOP office. When I go in there on a Monday, I get in, I like to say 9. Sometimes it's 9:10 if I stop for a coffee at Dunkin'. But, there's already 6 people in there before I get in the office. And that's never happened. There were days that office weren't open. In years past, where there was just, there's nothing going on today, so the doors are closed and the lights are off. There's not going to be any more of that, even after November 4th.
Well, what's astonishing to me about liberal and progressive Democrats is that they are the big D first. All right? One could say travesties were wreaked upon their house this election cycle, particularly with Maria Samini and people like that, who were openly primaried by the leader of their own party, yet at the same time they display this remarkable fealty, this almost Kool-Aid drinking devotion, I say that with love because some of them are my friends, to the Democratic Party. It reminds me a lot of the plight of the Libertarian. The Republican Party can commit electoral atrocities on them, and yet there's a certain element of that will stick with the Republican Party through thick and thin. I don't know if it's good or not for a political party to have that kind of discipline. It certainly yields results electorally. At the same time, if you're underneath, you're not fomenting any real discussion of the issues, then you're running a politic that is so cynical. There are no theories, there are no values there, and that seems to be the plight of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and it's a difficult trap to avoid. There are days that I sit in my office and I wish that I had authoritarian control over every one of our candidates and every registered Republican, and I could just say, "Stop the madness!" Let's get
this week,
this week, last week, and next week probably. It's just you can't do that. Okay, you can't censor opinion. And one thing that I'm very proud of, and I know that is that I'm not afraid, whether it be in social media or email or on the radio or on television, to answer a tough question. People have called me out for saying that I'm a so-called libertarian Republican, but how do I support Catherine Taylor? That's a question I've got 10 times.
Well, okay, you opened it up. I had now, full disclosure, Tony Jones, who is a libertarian candidate on the ballot for lieutenant governor. Hashtag shut it down.
I love that hashtag, by the way.
Shut it down. Hashtag shut it down. Is running against, as we describe her, Catherine Chafee Taylor.
Much to my chagrin, by the way. I hate that nickname.
I know, and I there's few things in life I'll take credit for, but that's one of them. Lifelong Chafeenista. Since in her own LinkedIn published resume, since 1987 has spent a grand total of a year and a half, I believe, in the dreaded private sector before she ran back to the warm, fuzzy embrace of mother government. I voted for her for Secretary of State when she ran against, Frank growing up Mollis. All right. I support. She was a rising star, and
She still is.
Well, within minutes of the election, she bailed. I have always considered Lincoln Chafee to be one of the worst blights, and this is I loathed Lincoln Chafee before it was cool to loathe Lincoln Chafee.
Do you have that bumper sticker?
There's a website there. I always considered him to be a blight on Rhode Island politics. Yet she couldn't wait. And I guess on a practical level, if she'd gone to a real cabinet level position, I could kind of get that. But essentially, in my mind, she sold out the Republican Party for a $70,000 a year state job, roughly, which to me was astonishing because she should have stayed and run for Secretary of State again and her cop-out at the time was that voter ID was now a moot issue. Well, we all know that it's not a moot issue. And there's a very real chance that it's going to be repealed.
I don't know. I think the public outcry or public support for it that was there will turn into public outcry should they try and take that away. I certainly will be campaigning with every dime, dollar, and bit of sweat equity I can put into it to make sure that we keep voter ID. I saw a great meme or whatever you want to call it on Facebook the other day where it showed everything that we have to give an ID for, and then voting was the one thing on the side that we didn't have to do. And I'm sure that's not original or the first time anybody's seen that, but it's very telling. I don't see the issue. I've debated this with Bob Plain from RI Future on the air before. It's so simple. We've got free IDs being given out by the Secretary of State's office. We've got the opportunity for people that can't travel to have these types of things come to them. There's just no reason to not have some type of backup system. And as we all know, if you show up without your ID, you cast a provisional ballot. Some poor government sap's got to do the work to check it out, but the checkout is done. And no harm, no foul. I don't see the issue. It's not like we're turning them away without ID.
Well, I found great humor this past weekend as the Alorzaites, rose up in protest over the alleged voter fraud that took place at that organization that, by the way, is run by the Alorzaites.
But there's no such thing as voter fraud, right? That's what they tell us. So.
Well, here's the thing. I guess one noted progressive, who's a lovely woman, demanded that in the future that if people are collecting ballots, they show IDs. And I just pointed out that then you're disenfranchising people's right to screw with elections.
They do talk out of both sides sometimes. That's for sure.
There seems to be an inherent conflict there. But how do you nominate? I mean, the righteous thing to have done this election cycle was to have nominated someone whose emphasis would have been hashtag shut it down. That would have been, to me, the righteous thing to do. And Tony and I think other people were sitting there watching and waiting for some type of behavior similar to the last election cycle, because the lieutenant governor, it's $5 million. Now, I've actually got people telling me, that's not that much money. Are you kidding me?
I could use $5 million.
I could use too, and that's $5 a person. And so there's 4 people in my household in Rhode Island. I want my $20.
Yes,
all right?
you deserve your $20.
I want my 20 freaking bucks. So all right, enough buildup. She's appearing routinely. If you go to PO Taxpayer / Pat Ford, my page now is a picture of her. It looks like a bad wedding crasher shot, where she's trying to sneak in to the picture with all the other progressives at an environmental event, which, by the way, Republicans are the original environmentalists.
Absolutely. Reagan was very strong on the environment.
And the EPA was founded by?
Ronald Reagan. No.
Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon. So, but it was at one of these typical... missing the big point, but we're going to obsess over something small, environmental events. And there she is mugging for the camera. She's against right to work. She's for big government. She's recreating or attempting to recreate in her own image a job that has no job description, so she can score $100 grand a year job. She's everything that the Rhode Island Republican Party should stand against.
Well, it's all about the spin, right? So. When you look at Catherine Taylor, I think we both would agree, and I think I might have said this to you online, that there's not much that she couldn't do out in the private sector and be making at least $70K. She's got a pretty stellar resume. People like to see government service. They like to see somebody who can speak. If I could get that, if I can get a job in my lifetime making more than $70K, then I know Catherine can. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So I don't think it's an opportunistic move. I have two independent thoughts myself personally. Because of what's happening with voter ID and what's going to change, we don't know how the master level process will go. Selfishly, I kind of would have liked to see her run for Secretary of State again because I feel so strongly about the passion she showed in her run last time. But she decided that this is what she wanted to do. Now, I can't speak for Catherine Taylor, but in conversations we've had, and I asked her, I said, so why would you take a job with Lincoln Chafee? Right? Because that's an important question.
Right.
And that's not a question to shy away from. And
it's a question, by the way, that party regular GOPs crucified Ken Block over. I mean, for a far more tenuous connection. I mean, Ken Block, all right, volunteered for his and his firm's services in what I considered a patriotic move to do a report that ultimately Lincoln Chafee tried to stuff.
Well, you won't hear me rip on Ken. He's a welcome addition to this party. It was a great, tough race. I mean, there were some contentious moments, but I'm glad he's part of the team. Him and I continue to talk, and we're glad to have him.
Well, we're going to pick this up right after the break. Again, coalitionradio.us, facebook.com, the Coalition Radio. You got a few questions, you got a few insults, particularly directed at me, go to Twitter, at PO Taxpayer. In studio, Rob Paquin, Executive Director of the Rhode Island Grand Ole Party. You could tell it's I got to give him a lot of credit. He isn't ducking anything. We'll be right back after this break.
My name is Robert Paquin, and I'm the Executive Director of the Rhode Island Republican Party. For 75 years, Democrats have controlled this state, and we are nearly last in every measurable category, from unemployment numbers to business friendliness. Join me in bringing balance to the General Assembly on November 4th by voting for a Republican. As I have said many times, give us a shot. We couldn't possibly do any worse than the Democrats already have. This message paid for and authorized by the Rhode Island Republican Party. Mark Smiley, Chairman.
Struggling with addiction to heroin or painkillers? The Journey to Hope, Health, and Healing puts you on the road to recovery. The Journey puts the patient first, with high-quality methadone treatment and individually tailored counseling. And health insurance experts are on site to help you sign up for the right coverage. Call The Journey at 1-888-312-2033. That's 1-888-312-2033. Get into recovery today.
For delicious, fresh, authentic, fresh-made, daily homemade food, come to Roma on the Hill. Roma on the Hill always offers professional, courteous service where they treat you like family. For the freshest and best variety of Italian pastry, come to Roma. For the best express lunch, wood-fired pizza, panini, subs on the Hill, come to Roma. For private, corporate events and catering with over 25 years of experience, come to Roma. For classic Neapolitan-style cucina, Fridays and Saturdays, you guessed it, come to Roma. Call for reservations at 401-331-5000 or visit romaprov.com.
This Veterans Day, honor our women warriors at a charity luncheon at Quidnesset Country Club. At the 4th Annual Women Warriors Luncheon, you'll hear amazing stories of courage, sacrifice, and patriotism of women veterans from Rhode Island. The proceeds of the luncheon will assist women veterans who face homelessness and challenges who live at the Holly Charette House in Johnston. Now, Holly Charette was a joyful young Marine from Cranston who was a Cranstonese cheerleader, class of 2001, before joining the Marines, and Corporal Holly Charette was killed in action in Fallujah in 2005. Her memory lives on in the hearts of those that knew and loved Holly, so attend the luncheon and hear from a woman who served in the Navy during World War II and an Army medic who served in Afghanistan. Tickets are $50 each, and thanks to the generosity of Quidnesset Country Club, 100% of the ticket price will go to the Holly Charette House, one of the homes provided for veterans from Operation Stand Down RI. Go to 790business.com, order your tickets. The Women Warrior Luncheon Tuesday, November 11th at 11:30 at Quidnesset Country Club, proudly sponsored by Sandra Peters, Ameriprise Financial.
There's a brotherhood of guys who love getting under the hood. Among them, a simple shared principle. My engine, my responsibility. Step up this fall with 1 gallon of Peak 50/50 Long Life Antifreeze on sale for $10.99. Plus get an additional $3 back by mail. Advance Auto Parts. Let's get you back to the garage.
Mail-in rebate, void where prohibited. See store for details.
Your local Health Mart pharmacy would like to salute caregivers everywhere. They're the selfless among us, juggling work and care with little time for themselves. The ones who are aiding an aging parent, or nurturing a sick child, or supporting a loved one who perhaps doesn't remember them anymore. Fact is, we are all caregivers at different times, And your Health Mart pharmacist is ready to go above and beyond to support you with advice, encouragement, and expert guidance.